Jake El Gallo Paul and Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. and Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. go back and forth on their press conference. As we all know, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. and Jake El Gallo Paul will be fighting soon, but it does not end there. Jake Paul actually challenged Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. He actually said he could take on both Julio Cesar Chavez's at the same time. I don't know about that. I think Jake Paul is gonna have his hands full with Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. because this fight will be taking place at cruiserweight. When they both did the face-off, they did not look that far apart. Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. did not look that much smaller than Jake Paul, and Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. I believe will be Jake Paul's biggest test. Even though Jake Paul already beat an opponent that actually beat Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., but when that happened, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. was going through some stuff and he was actually doing the sugar burger, and he actually said he wasn't really training for the Anderson Silva fight. And Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. said that he has never seen Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. train like that in a very long time, since Canelo days. And Sr. says if he keeps training like that, he will definitely put a whooping on Jake El Gallo Paul. But to do that, he's gonna have to train like that all the way through the camp until the fight starts. Now this is gonna be a really good fight because they're both about the same size. Who will win? Will Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. shock the world and beat Jake Paul, or will Jake Paul make history and be the first rooster to ever lay an egg? And you guys know how much eggs are right now. If Jake Paul lays an egg in the middle of the ring, I will go grab that egg and sell it online on eBay or something. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna get a lot for a rooster Jake Paul egg, but I digress. So they both go back and forth and they just really talking about each other's else. You know how they do. Every time there's a press conference, every single fighter talks about the other fighter and their accomplishments, but mostly their losses. Jake Paul also says that he is the fastest rising star ever, but I gotta disagree. I believe Rolando Romero is the fastest rising star ever. That's a champion, because Jake Paul has not been a champion yet, and Rolly has been a 3-time world champion. Jake Paul has the money and fame, but he does not have the accolades yet. And Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. was even talking about his accomplishments. Jake Paul believes that he really beat a prime Mike Tyson, and Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. also said if Mike Tyson would have fought at least one round, he would have knocked out Jake Paul. But you cannot win a fight if you don't throw any punches. Tell that to Devin Haney and Shakur Stevenson, as they both have won fights without throwing really any punches. And when I actually heard about that fight, Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson, I really thought it was a joke, because how is Jake Paul gonna fight a 58-year-old and brag about it like if you really beat a kid Dynamite when he was knocking everybody out at a young age? So you do not get any points for that at all. That is an embarrassing win. You should not be allowed to win. Both of you guys should have took a loss. Well, now Mike Tyson should have won, because he has no business being in there with somebody in their prime that's a heavyweight and is an active fighter, even though he is not that good. Man, if Rolly was the same size as Jake Paul, Rolly will beat the ish out of Jake Paul. So I do respect Jake Paul for bringing in women's boxing and making it big and bringing more eyes in boxing that were not gonna be boxing fans if it wasn't for Jake Paul started boxing. But with all Jake Paul's respect, I do not think he is a real fighter until he actually fights an active fighter. Now this fight with Julio Cesar Chavez is gonna be taking place at cruiserweight, and guess who was in attendance, because he actually has a fight on the undercard, none other than the champion Zurdo Ramirez at cruiserweight, might I add. And not just that, I believe this will be the first time Jake Paul actually steps up to the plate, and he does not even have to beat Zurdo Ramirez. All he has to do is perform well. But if he stops or even beats Zurdo Ramirez, oh my god, now the talk is gonna happen. Everybody's gonna try to put him on the pound for pound list, and they will both be on the even playing field. Zurdo is an active fighter, and so is Jake Paul, and they're both about the same size. I believe Zurdo is actually like 2 inches taller, and I think Zurdo Ramirez will be his ultimate test, whether he wants to keep going in boxing or he wants to call it quits or maybe fight lesser fighters. Because Jake Paul has not been fighting nothing but boxers. He has been going to the UFC and picking fights there. Nothing but MMA fighters that their first sport is not boxing, so they're a little bit raw when it comes to boxing. So I am pretty sure anybody that dedicates themselves just to boxing will be somebody that does MMA and has a mixture of other stuff that they have to train for, and they stop boxing. A MMA sometimes has to kick and grapple. That means that he has to stop punching. So he will never get as good as boxing as the actual boxer, the guy that throws nothing but punches and just works on his craft, because there's no other weapon. In UFC, there's so many ways to win and so many ways to lose. You could lose on top or on the bottom. I'm really not too familiar with UFC. I'm not really into the sport. I really just like boxing. I really don't like the UFC. I think it's boring, especially when they wrestle all through all 5 rounds. I cannot stand that. I cannot stand 2 men wrestling, grabbing each other everywhere, and just looks weird. I'm not into that kind of stuff. And add insult to injury, these UFC fighters were pretty much retired by the time Jake Paul fought them. They were not even active UFC fighters. And if he did fight an active fighter, it was somebody way smaller than him. So I guess his resume on paper is pretty much solid, but only solid 100 years from now, when nobody knows the fighters that Jake Paul fought. They only know that they were champions at some point in time. There's one thing I don't get about Jake Paul. He's actually celebrating that he beat an Iron Mike Tyson, a Kid Dynamite Mike Tyson. Bro, you did not beat the heavyweight Mike Tyson, bro. You did not. Even though when you challenge Julio Cesar Chavez Sr., I guarantee you're gonna be thinking that you beat a prime Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. And I guarantee you're gonna be bragging about that on your next fight. When you challenge Roberto Duran or Sugar Ray Leonard or Sugar Shane Mosley, somebody like that. Why don't you fight Daniel Dynamite Dubois or Parker? And we all know Mike Tyson is better than you in his prime. Even Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. said this. He says that age does matter, and he says that he knows his dad is better than Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., but the age is too different. He says that even though he is better than him, he could knock out his father. Only weirdos brag about beating on somebody older, kind of like Keyshawn Davis. Now, I believe Keyshawn Davis is a good fighter, but this guy be bragging about beating on an old man like Teofimo Lopez Sr. He says that he knocked him out. Man, that shit ain't nothing to brag about. Who the heck's gonna respect you after that? And both sides keep going back and forth if they really did it or not. Keyshawn Davis says that he did knock him out, and Teofimo Lopez Sr. says that he did not. Now, me, I go by what makes sense, because me, I do not believe that story. Because the rumor is that Keyshawn Davis knocked out Teofimo Lopez Sr., and the rumor is that Teofimo Lopez Jr. just sat and watched his dad get beat up. Now, 90% of the people I know will not let that ish ride. I know for a fact I would do something that very instant, and 90% of the people I know would too. And the other 10% I'm talking about, these 10%ers are really church people and would never hurt a fly, and they will forgive you before they even fight you. But for the rest of us 90%, oh, we're getting down. I don't care if you're the nerdiest guy in the class or in the room, you will get down for your dad. And I know these fighters, they fight in the ring for a payday, and people are gonna say, make them pay in the ring and embarrass him in the ring. Not me. You jumping my dad will be way too personal. Believe me, I will never challenge you in the ring. Me and you are getting in a street fight. I don't want any rules to come away from my satisfaction. This fight has to be a street fight without any rules. So that's the only thing that I really do not like about Jake Paul. This guy has the nerve to challenge old people. And I'm actually down to fight Jake Paul. Send the contract, big boy. And I'm down with that. I'm not even playing about that shit. If you see my past videos, I've said that many times. Now, I think Jake Paul is pretty good, but I do not think I'll be in any type of danger against Jake Paul. I'm already fit. I don't have to diet. I'm already training. I already run 3 miles. I really do not have to do anything different in my lifestyle. If I do fight Jake Paul, all I have to do is spar. I mean, I'm not gonna get the fight. I'm just saying I'm down to fight Jake Paul. But who do you guys think is is gonna win, Jake Paul or Julio Cesar Chavez Jr.? And do you guys think Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. is gonna take the challenge against Jake Paul next? All these questions will be answered on the next episode of Dragon Ball Z. Just kidding, guys. Remember this, I ain't the biggest, I'm the baddest. And if you wanna help out your boy, throw $1 at the super thanks. I got a robe.
I shook up the world! I shook up the world! I shook up the world!